Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NBA center Ryan Hollins.
Couple pump fakes, leans in, shot blocked by Ryan Hollins. Hollins sent that into the third row.
6 rebounds and 8 assists.
Hollins climbs the stairs.
Down the floor.
Ryan Hollins, he is the high jumper. That's what I want to see. Give me some gunpowder and throw the hammer down.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Hollins, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Ric Bucher. You can see me on FS1. You can read me on Bleacher Report. You can follow me on Twitter at Ric Bucher. He is Ryan Hollins, NBA vet. You can find him on Twitter at the Ryan Hollins. You can see him on ESPN and a variety of other platforms. He's a media mogul. He's a one-man media mogul these days. You can also find him on Instagram at Ryan Hollins. This is our post-NBA Finals edition. Our first. I don't know how much more we're going to talk about it. There's certainly the ramifications of it, but I'll start there, Ryan. As simple as this. Did we crown the proper champion?
You got to define that a little more for me because, I mean, they won 4 games in the NBA Finals.
Did the better team win? Did the better team win?
Due to circumstances, yeah. I mean, due to the circumstances, they scored more points. The factor that I think you're alluding to is injuries. And by no means were they better with half a KD. By no means were they better with just only Klay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no question there. The proof is in the pudding. Klay Thompson had 30 points at the time. Toronto was not going to beat Golden State, even without KD, even with a hobbled DeMarcus Cousins, even with Looney with no ribs left. Okay, so that team was gonna lose. So there's no question there, Rick. I don't understand, and maybe you can help me better, Rick, because you're in the Bay Area with this. Why there's so many Warriors haters, and there's so many people that are adamantly saying they beat them outright. The hell you did. Help me out here, Rick.
Well, I will say this. They did beat them with a healthy Klay Thompson. They did beat them fair and square with a healthy Klay Thompson. KD was not part of the equation. We know how important he was to the equation. But you did have Kyle Lowry dealing with an injury. You had Kawhi Leonard dealing with an injury. You had Fred VanVleet dealing with an injury. So not as catastrophic because those guys obviously were still available. I don't know that the separation from a health standpoint was quite as dramatic as people are making it out to be. And if we look at over the course of the Warriors run, they benefited at times with injuries. Kyrie Irving in the first championship, Kevin Love not being available, Kawhi Leonard going down in an earlier series.
What's that have to do with right now, though?
Well, it's simply if we're gonna discount,
contradicting yourself. No one's saying that they didn't.
If we're gonna discount this championship,
because I'm talking about now.
Exactly, but you're discounting this championship based on injury. Well,
yes.
But we haven't been discounting the previous championships by the Warriors, have we?
I have. I absolutely have.
Okay.
When Kevin Love and Kyrie went down and they won, me and you both said they didn't deserve that championship. You can't forget my words now. Listen, that's just a fact. They were not going to beat that team, and LeBron alone.
I did not say that.
Them.
I did not say. You may have said that, and I'll give you.
I'm absolutely on the record that if Kyrie and Kevin Love were healthy,
yes,
they were not going to beat the Cavaliers that year. LeBron James alone with Tristan. Listen, hold on. His starting 5: Timofey Mozgov, Tristan Thompson, Matthew Dellavedova, J.R. Smith, and Iman Shumpert. Okay, and he almost beats them. So there's no questions there that they would have lost that series if Kyrie or Love, just one of those guys was healthy. So I'm staying consistent here, and I'm not just skewing to the Warriors side, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here. Number one, the value of winning a championship, however you win it, is invaluable. And the Cavaliers had that advantage going in that LeBron James knew what it took to win a championship, had been on that platform, and had a couple of other guys with him that also had that experience. So there is an advantage in having that intrinsic knowledge that 2015 Cavaliers team had. I am reluctant to ever discount a championship for whatever reason, because you still have to go out and do it. Just like we saw in Game 6, the Raptors had to go out and find a way to beat a Warriors team that was not going to beat itself. You have to, whatever it is, whoever you put on the floor, whoever they have on the floor, you have to execute and ultimately get it done. And in the same way that the Cavaliers turned the tables, or the San Antonio Spurs turned the tables on the Miami Heat, they also ultimately got it. They get it done. And I never want to discredit the team that gets it done. And that's why I won't discredit this. I also feel as if the injuries, I said it from the beginning of the year, and you can back me up on this, that the champion was going to come out of the East because the Warriors were going to slowly crumble, physically crumble. Now, I didn't expect it to be quite as dramatic, and that guys were going to have injuries that were going to not only erase them from these playoffs, but from next year. But ultimately, what happened is what we should expect from riding the same horses 5 years in a row and asking them to play this game the way it's played, as fast as it is with the possessions that it has, and expect that physically you're going to have guys get through that. And if you have a guy like Klay Thompson, I saw this last year, he was breaking down. I'm like, if a guy like Klay Thompson is breaking down at the end of 4 years, why should I believe he's not going to break down at the end of 5? That was my whole logic in not believing that the Warriors were going to get it done.
Hold on. Are you going to go on record and say that Klay Thompson broke down?
Yes. Without question, he broke down.
That's absolutely false. That's absolutely false. This wasn't a muscle. Obviously, he had the hamstring. But to me, this is a fluke injury where the guy lands in an improper way. Now, if he had something from conditioning, or ankles were bad, or back was getting tight, I would say, hey, he was breaking down in the terms of Klay Thompson. Now, obviously, he's not a spring chicken, but the guy falls off the rim in an awkward motion it never happened in his entire career and tears his ACL. That's a fluke injury, Rick. I cannot just call that breaking down.
But
I know you were very. Now, Rick, I'm gonna throw this to you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you called this with the Warriors. I will credit this, and you pointed strongly at Draymond Green. Draymond Green had one of the worst regular seasons as he's had in years.
Yes,
but we never pointed towards Klay, Rick. So I do on one side I agree with breaking down, but I disagree when you put it towards Klay.
I believe these kind of catastrophic injuries happen. They do. They can happen in a freakish way, but they're more likely to happen when you are fatigued or when you're compromising for another injury. Your ability to regain your balance, the timing in which you get to the rim, you get there a little bit slower, so there's a little bit more contact, or you extend yourself a little bit more because you are fatigued and because your leg doesn't give you the same spring. Like everything gets thrown off. You know this. You've played fatigued, and when you're sharp and you are you're full of energy, you can protect yourself far more easily than when you're playing tired. Now your balance isn't quite as good. Now you're a step slow. Now you're running into guys more often. Everything is off a little bit, and as a result of everything being off, you're more vulnerable to something like this happening. Now, could it have been freakish? Sure, but I believe that when you just get worn down physically and you're compromising for other issues, that's when you have injuries that you never would have expected to happen. And again, you look at no KD for a while, DeMarcus in and out, Andre in and out. Who had to pick up a lot of that slack? Klay did. Klay had to play bigger in these last couple of games with KD out? Who tried to step up and do more? Klay did, in spite of the hamstring. He's now got to guard Kawhi Leonard. I mean, now it's a different guy that he's got to guard. I just think all of that ultimately compounded itself. And now the biggest thing, Ryan, is they are in a world of hurt. I didn't think they would be. I thought the dynasty run would be over, but now you're looking at the prospect of, I'm not expecting KD to be back, and no, even if he re-signed, you're looking at the prospect of playing without both Klay and KD next season, an entire season, and you have no way to spend or get requisite pieces to cover while they're out. This is going to be a falling off the cliff season, as I am anticipating for the Warriors. And I don't say that with any joy or glee, but man, Joe Lacobs, we're light years ahead. That people are going to be throwing that back in his face all next season. And I really can't fault them for doing it, because it was a presumptuous thing to say.
Hey man, the first thing comes to mind, from hearing what you're saying, I agree. The NBA's never been so much more wide open. Secondly, the Lakers, if they can land AD, and maybe New Orleans now hikes up the price of AD because they know this is going to be a real type of power shift, not a baby power shift, a real power shift of what they can get. If Lakers get AD, they're going to be favorites for a championship. Now it depends how much they give away. And thirdly, Rick, remember when we were talking about Houston? Remember when we were talking about these emotional responses of their ownership and, fire D'Antoni, everybody's on the chopping block. That's why you don't deal in emotion.
Yes.
That's why you don't jump to right? That's why you don't jump to conclusions. Houston, if they get healthy, maybe add another piece at the mid-level exception, they would be favorites right now.
Dude, as of right now, they should be favored. You could make the argument that they should be favored in the West. Not them, Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is wide open. This is where I'm not as quick to think that the Lakers are going to instantly walk through that door. If they could add AD to what they have, I'd be with you. I think I'd be with you. But the fact that they're going to have to give up a boatload of assets, they're going to have to give up Lonzo.
Well, hear this, though. Give up Lonzo, but the ultimate goal is, and they voiced this, and I'm glad there's some common sense to that front office. They must have heard me talk. You want to hold on to Kyle Kuzma. And the exchange here is when you get the fourth pick, and I want to know how you feel about this. In my eyes, if I'm putting on my GM's hat, the fourth pick is more valuable than Kyle Kuzma because the potential's there. You have youth. You have a while before you have to, sign an extension, and you take away the pressures of having Zion having to win now, and you go out and cash out in the draft. If not, move that pick for, a later year. But you get a lot of wiggle room and options if you get that fourth pick from the Lakers, and that allows the Lakers to say, hey, we can hold on to Kuzma because we're going to ship the pick with Ingram and with Lonzo Ball. And might add, Lonzo Ball, prior to the injury, he didn't have a bad year. Guys, I don't want to just say he's a baller off the chain, but there's something there with Lonzo, man, and a lot of people have given up. But if you really watch, he's got some value.
I always thought that Lonzo had the chance to be a good player. I just thought retiring his jersey and saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer before he played a minute was unfair because we don't appreciate what he can do now. Everybody wants to bang on him for what he isn't because he was advertised to be so sensational. And you just looked at it and you said, I feel the same way with Zion. We're setting the expectations way, way too high for this kid. Could he eventually grow into being a spectacular NBA player, even potentially a generational player? Sure. But his skill set right now is not expansive enough for that to ultimately happen. That's not going to happen. And so the way they're talking about him, He's supposed to lead the Pelicans to the playoffs. Well, the Pelicans may get to the playoffs in the West because everything's so jumbled. But it ain't going to be on Zion's back. Not alone. It's going to be Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday as a backcourt. It's going to be, depending on what they do with Julius Randle, it's going to be a lot of other things that are going to determine whether the Pelicans are a playoff team. Not Zion Williamson leading the charge. I guarantee you, whatever happens with the Pelicans, that's not going to be the deal. He's not walking in and grabbing that franchise by the scruff of the neck and dragging them somewhere. It's just not, that's not going to happen. He doesn't have that kind of game at this point in his career. And again, we're doing him a disservice by all of the over the top generational player. He's a generational athlete. That's what he is, Ryan. He's a generational athlete. And because of his demeanor and his personality, and I don't know, I've heard mixed things on his work ethic, but I'm going to go with the Angels and say he's got a really good work ethic. He has a chance to become a generational player, but that's not guaranteed coming in just because he's the best athlete coming out of college.
No, I agree. And if you're the Pelicans and we break this down, Rick, and you got to say what can they piece around Zion to help him succeed? I need a pass for his point guard. And I know Drew Holiday can go score it, but I need someone and he can pass it. But I want to put playmakers around Zion to where you can catch and shoot. He can catch and finish. He doesn't have to do too much. I don't want him having to, overly handle the basketball. And it's not that he can't dribble, not that he can't shoot. Those parts of his game just aren't refined. But he can be one of the elite finishers in the league if he's in a position where he can just go rise up on somebody or, hit a set shot three. I think, man, you put him in a really sweet position, dude.
Yeah. So Kawhi leaves, and right now I'm hearing Clippers in the driver's seat for him. I heard Philadelphia's name for the first time. Both New York teams, although the sense that I get is it might be more Knicks than Nets. I don't know that Sean Marks and the San Antonio connection necessarily works for them in this instance. But you take him out of Toronto. What is Toronto next year?
A team with not a lot of options. I mean, straight up. That's why even in Golden State, with KD leaving, they don't have another max slot to just go get in. Yeah. And for those who don't know the CBA, you can go over the cap, but signing your own players.
Right.
So that's why KD does the 1-and-1. He leaves the options to where he can go, and at the same time, the next time he gets paid, they can go over and they can, give him that full payday, that super max. So that's why guys, when they come, they do the short deal, and then they, team with a player option, they opt out, and then they get the bag pretty much. But if you're KD right now, I want to make the most money possible. I want to stay where I'm at. And, we have kind of unfinished business. And dang, the shot at three-peat really just slips through their hands.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Kawhi, I know the Clippers are the front runner if he goes. But Rick, I've never seen a player leave his team that he just won a championship with. This is an odd scenario, brother. Yeah. This is an odd one.
It is an odd one. That said, he was traded there. It's a foreign country. He's not a cosmopolitan type guy. The things that make Toronto great, I don't know necessarily appeal to him. I don't know if you saw him on Scott Van Pelt when he was asked about the Raptors. He said they have the great base for a foundation, and then he kind of corrected himself and he tried to fix it. But it was to me it was a tell. It was a giveaway of where his mind is right now. That even if for some reason he sits down and he weighs everything and he says, you know what? I should stay in Toronto. That right now, that's not where his mindset is. His mindset isn't, I'm attached to the Toronto Raptors. Not when you're referring to them as they. So let's go down before we go down the line of free agents, because I do not think that KD is re-upping with Golden State. I just don't. He's in New York. He had the surgery done by the Brooklyn Nets GM. I know that he and Kyrie have met since the surgery to continue their discussion about playing together. From what I've been told, KD is not going back west. He's going to spend the summer in New York. He's got a place there. I've even been told he's moved his stuff to New York. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't spend the offseason there and then roll back, or whenever he's capable of doing something again, going back. But all the tea leaves, particularly the conversation with Kyrie, if he's continuing to talk to Kyrie about where they want to play together, that ain't happening at Golden State. It's not. So that tells me that his mindset as of right now is he's playing in New York for one team or the other. With all that in mind, no Klay, presumably for the better part of next year, no KD, and no relief. What are the Golden State Warriors in your mind next year?
Wide open. I mean, Bob Myers, it was pretty cute. He was the GM of the exec of the year, and deservedly so. But that title will have to be earned. He is going to have to make some major overhauls. If I'm him, I'm even contacting the Pelicans and saying, maybe can we be a third team in this deal? They're going to have to be excellent in the draft. Maybe they move up in the draft. But they don't have
assets. What are their assets?
I was going to say, honestly, Rick, just being honest with you, Andre Iguodala is their best asset, and you got to talk about maybe doing something with another team that doesn't have assets. Maybe you're looking at Houston. Maybe you're looking at Philly. You're looking at a team that's going for maybe you're even looking at Toronto, a team going for a championship and saying, hey, this guy still has some miles left there. I don't think anyone's going to touch Draymond Green with a 10-foot stick unless you're possibly the Lakers, and I've heard that being thrown out. But the Lakers wouldn't go out and pay Draymond Green. They wouldn't pay him. So they've got some things they've got to figure out. Livingston hasn't been, and sorry to cut you off, Livingston hasn't been looking good.
No,
so
I think Livingston's going to retire. I think he's going to hang
Bob Myers, you got some work to do, bro. You got some work to do.
Yeah,
flat out.
Work to do with the cupboard bare. I mean, I don't know how for where the expectations are. Like, I see them, this is what's amazing. I see them as I still see them as a playoff team, but I see bottom half. I see them 5th through 8th. And that's if everybody stays healthy. My real concern is you're now talking about putting more weight on Draymond and Steph than you ever have with high expectations in a new building, with people paying premium prices, a brand new fan base. This is, I don't like to predict disaster. Like, I don't feel good that my prediction about the Warriors physically breaking down came to fruition. It's not fun to watch that. I mean, it wasn't. It's hard to watch that, right?
No, you're right.
But that said, man, I could see next year being a really tough year for the Golden State Warriors.
Okay, let me throw this out. Does this seem reminiscent of when the Lakers decided to move forward with Time Warner and the old Laker, their own Laker network? Mm-hmm. And then you had the big signing of Dwight Howard and Steve Nash, and they drove the price, and Kobe's there and Gasol's there.
Yeah. And
then they laid an absolute egg. Yeah. So listen, I was with BDA at the time, Bill Duffy, and they knew, they're like, Steve Nash was done. Like, they didn't even check the physical. Like, he was done. So the Lakers took him just knowing, you know what, hell, we're just gonna sell the tickets. We're gonna sell it. Dude, game 1 in the preseason, Steve Nash is on the sidelines. I can't even say on the bench, and he's laying on the bench with a hot pack on his back, laying on his back, instead of sitting.
And Dwight Howard should have had one.
You know what that means, bro.
Yeah.
He's done. And this is preseason, Rick.
Yeah, no, and Dwight Howard came in. I spent some time with him. He shouldn't have been playing. He came in feeling the pressure, and as Dwight Howard often has, he succumbed to the pressure. That's why he opted in with the Orlando Magic. They got him in a room and convinced him, hey, give us another year. You don't want to leave your teammates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He succumbed to that. He succumbed to the pressure from the Lakers and the Lakers fan base. Hey, we just got you. Like, here we go. You're the next great big man. He should not have been playing on that back. It should not have. And it compromised him for the better part of that season. If you remember, he finally got it going a little bit the second half where he was what you kind of expected him to be. But the damage done in a multitude of ways because he played on that back way too early. They were in a world of hurt. The only difference, I would say, is that the Lakers weren't coming off a 5-year run. Those guys were what they had accomplished elsewhere, and everybody kind of knew they were throwing something against the wall and hoping it would stick and bring them back to glory. Like, this is going to be Steph Curry. He is going to be under the microscope because he's not going to have a Klay next to him. There's not going to be a KD there. And so now everybody's going to be scrutinizing him through the prism of, well, this is a 2-time MVP. He's supposed to be able to carry a team. And I've said all along, he's not that kind of superstar. He's an intangible guy. There's a lot to love about him, but he's not a Michael, Kobe, LeBron, Magic type of guy. He doesn't dominate his position physically. He needs to have the pieces around him. He knows how to utilize them. He's a superstar as a scorer, and yet he can do it in a way that doesn't disrupt his team. But he doesn't have a whole lot around him next year. And him carrying the weight, I just don't expect that it's going to be a good look.
I was talking with Jamal Crawford on Twitter yesterday, and I said, the Warriors need you. They got to go and pick up some scoring. Mm-hmm. They got to get some depth, but they've got to put some hogs, and they got to put a system. You got to get a team of guys who can score it and guys who just work a bunch of PJ Tuckers. You need to go get a group of goons around Steph Curry to where he can do his thing, and you need guys that hit shots. And if I'm gonna fill the void of Klay as best you can, I may not get the defense, but I need some scoring. Yeah. So I mean Jamal Crawford, the guy had 50 this year, so I'm going to get a number of those guys. And I'm not playing around with, no disrespect to Jerebkos, the Livingstons. Like, we got to put something around Steph to where, hey, he doesn't, he can just, kind of be himself. And the rest of you guys just play hard as hell, Celtics style, not this year's Celtics, the Celtics before, and they go get it done.
Are we seeing the end or a shift when it comes to small ball? Because the Warriors really perfected it. Everybody kind of caught up with it. But if I was going to point to one thing that resulted in the Raptors winning this, it was their size, bro. It was their length and their size. They didn't shoot it particularly well from three-point range, but the Warriors couldn't do anything with them inside. And Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, Pascal Siakam, they got it done around the rim. And to me, that was the thing that the Warriors simply could not answer.
You got to look at this. They got arrogant. You look at guys like JaVale McGee. You tell me they couldn't use him this series? A guy who's 7 feet tall, runs, can switch out on screens, block shots, and finishes. I mean, Ibaka scored 20 points. He went 7 for 7 after getting game 4. That was ridiculous. So they can't be arrogant, and they've got to hold on to their talent. And to answer your question of small ball, yes and no. For one, small ball works when you have Steph and Klay. When you have guys that burn you with small ball, it works. I'm not necessarily playing small ball with guys who can't shoot, because guess what? I need a rebounder because those shots are going to be coming off. So you need somebody who can go get it. For two, big men are adapting. Big men can out dribble. They can put the ball on the floor. For instance, look at Marc Gasol, look at Ibaka. Those guys went from mid-range assassins to 3-point assassins and guys who can still get busy on the block. And then it's always nice when you have a stud like Kawhi Leonard. You have a stud like LeBron James. You can play big lineups with LeBron James because he makes up for every deficiency in the middle, and he makes sure that the pace is good. When I say the pace is good, when LeBron James is cooking, you play at his pace. And that game 4, when Kawhi Leonard was lighting things up, Golden State spent more taking the ball out the basket than getting rebounds and running in transition. That's how you manage pace. That's how you play big. And no team had been able to do that, but teams has slowly come around because these big guys are now spacers. Keep in mind, let's say the traditional big, right, Rick?
Yeah.
The guy rebounds, maybe hits a 20-footer, maybe he's a post-up guy. Those guys start to get in the way, and the lane becomes either too clogged or too jammed up, and you're limited in your offense. Well, now these guys pop out, and they dribble, they put the ball on the floor. So I don't want to say it's the end of the small ball. I just believe that the skill set of players around the league from 1 through 5, point guard through center, are catching up.
Yeah. You mentioned Bob Myers, Executive of the Year. DeMarcus Cousins. This leads me into this whole subject. Was that a good signing? Was that a smart signing? Did that pay off for the Warriors? Because I'm going to tell you, even in the absence of not knowing exactly who they would have got instead, I don't think in the big scheme of things that it paid off. Even at $5.8 million, I don't think it paid off.
I'm going to agree with you as much as I love Boogie. And make no mistake, the guy fought back. He did a lot of things to help the Warriors out, but it didn't fit. And the notion was that you're really ultimately not going to need him at the end of the day. Well, guess what they needed? They needed a rotational player. Mm-hmm. They needed a guy who can go out and get busy. They needed the DeMarcus Cousins that you remember out there. And by him not being the same Boogie that we remember once he got back, it was a high-risk, high-reward type of move. It did not pay off. And he hurt you more on the defensive end, on just the hustle end, being able to move around, and then just during the season not being there. Well, that could have been 1, maybe 2 rotational players in the lineup that they can go after and kind of, say, hey, I know you guys are chasing a championship. You're chasing a championship. Come join us. Come be a part of what's happening here. And they could not make that move by going after Cousins. So would I, if I'm Bob Myers, sign DeMarcus Cousins? Yes. Did it pay off? No.
Okay, fair enough. They went cheap on Patrick McCaw as well. All right, we're gonna have plenty of talk. We're gonna have plenty of time to continue our conversation on the free agency. That's not going anywhere. So we're gonna wrap it on this with the post NBA Finals edition. We are looking at the draft. That's going to be interesting. Anthony Davis, I would expect, is going to be a Laker before the draft comes down. So in the next podcast on Monday, will be Will Blackman and I looking at exactly what we know about the free agent picture and who might be the number 4, number 5, number 6 pick, because there's going to be a lot of movement from what I understand when it comes to the draft. All right, all that in the next podcast. Don't forget to rate the show, screenshot it, and send it to @BucherFriends, and you'll be eligible to win some prizes. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening.